All right, so you know you're here with us at the deep dive because you really want to get to the heart of things right. You don't want to mess around with all the fluff. You want to just grab those core ideas and really put them into practice. And today we are taking a deep dive into what this one entrepreneur, Myron Golden, calls an 8-figure blueprint. And get this, he says he's done it all without relying on these massive ad budgets.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. So we went through and we've got this transcript of one of Golden's YouTube talks, and it is chock full of what he calls his 8 secrets to 8 figures. So in this deep dive, we want to unpack these secrets. We want to go a little bit deeper than just scratching the surface and really see how these kind of actionable ideas could actually reshape how you approach your business.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump right in. First up, we have secret number 1, perception of the pain of the people. Now, that might sound a bit more like therapy than like business strategy on the surface, but let's see what he really means by this. So the basic idea here is that the money that you're trying to make isn't just, floating around somewhere out there. It's actually in the hands of other people. And here's the real key. They're willing to give it to you if you can offer a real solution to a problem that's causing them, some serious pain.
It is interesting, right? Because it kind of flips the script on how we usually think about business. Usually you start with the product or service, and then you try to find the market for it. But what Golden's saying is, no, you start with actually understanding what your customers are struggling with first, and then you go from there. He even tells this story about how he helped these 2 roommates out with food money while he was on vacation, and then he came home with more money than he left with. And I think it really highlights this whole thing about focusing on serving others first. Do that, and you might be surprised at the rewards that come back to you.
Yeah, that story really kind of sticks with you. And he makes this connection between these pain points and profit super clear. He uses this great analogy about how you're way more likely to spend money on a root canal when you're in excruciating pain than you are to, just go get your teeth whitened for fun. That's about addressing a real pressing need.
Totally. And he doesn't stop there. He goes on to connect those kind of surface level pains to those deeper human needs. He talks about these 3 core requirements for us to feel fulfilled as humans: creation, connection, and contribution. And he argues that if you can figure out where people are feeling empty in these areas, that's how you find those deeper pain points that your business could really help with. If someone's feeling disconnected or they're not contributing to something meaningful, well, that feeling right there, that could be a huge opportunity for a business to step in.
So how do we actually get to the bottom of these pain points? Well, Golden suggests something that's really simple, actually, but a lot of people miss it. Just ask your audience what they're struggling with. Just ask them straight up. Something like, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now in relevant area? It sounds simple, but he's serious about not just asking the question, but really listening to the answers and then doing something with what you hear.
Oh yeah, the listening and the doing something about it, those are super crucial. It's not enough to just collect information. You have to show that you actually care about what people are going through and that you're committed to understanding their world. Golden even talks about his own past struggles, things like his wife being pregnant and having their utility shut off or having to deal with a car that kept breaking down. And that's how he connects with his audience because he's been there, he gets it.
That's powerful. Makes you think about, in your own business, how are you actively trying to find out and really understand what your target audience is struggling with? So much to consider. Okay, let's move on to secret number 2. Aspiration to alleviate the ailment. It's one thing to know what the pain is, but Golden says you got to really want to fix it.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just see the problem. You have to be driven to solve it. Golden has this amazing quote. He says, "Service is the most fulfilling and profitable seed that you can sow." And I think what he's getting at is that this desire to help people overcome their challenges. It's not just some nice idea. It's like the bedrock of a successful business. It's about thinking long term and focusing on building real value.
He makes this really interesting point. Every solution you come up with, it's going to create new problems. Think about it. The smartphone solved so many problems around communication and information, but then you needed cases and screen protectors and apps, and then we started having problems with all the distractions.
It's so true. And the smart businesses are the ones who can see those new problems coming and position themselves to offer solutions. It's like the classic example of selling a car, which then leads to needing tires and repairs and insurance. It's this ripple effect, One active service can open up so many more opportunities.
It's like you're always thinking one step ahead. And he makes this crucial distinction. Don't use people to get money. Instead, love people and use money to help them. That's a big shift in how we usually think.
Totally. And I think that shift to genuinely caring for people and wanting to use your resources to help them, that's what really separates the truly impactful businesses from the ones that are just in it for a quick buck.
Yeah.
So how can you be sure that your drive to solve people's problems comes from a place of genuine care and not just a desire for profit?
Right, so that takes us to secret number 3. Strategize over a solution that's sellable. Okay, we get the pain, we want to fix it, but now how do we actually create something that people will pay for?
Well, Golden actually quotes King Solomon on this one. He says, "If I have something good, I have a moral obligation to do everything in my power to sell it to as many people as possible." Now, he clarifies that this isn't about being manipulative or tricking people into buying something they don't need. It's about really communicating the value of your solution and the positive transformation that it can bring.
Yeah, it's got to be genuine.
Yeah.
And he lays out a pretty clear process. First, you really got to understand what your customer wants to achieve. What's that end result that they're looking for? And then you work backwards from there to develop the solution and create an offer that directly addresses that desired outcome.
Exactly. He uses a great example from his own business, his $375,000 VIP day. Now, that's a big investment. So he breaks down exactly how he justifies that price by aiming to help his clients make 10 times that amount in return. The offer includes things like teaching them his business frameworks, potentially flying them on a private jet to see how he does business, giving them exposure to his audience through interviews, and 8 hours of one-on-one coaching.
Wow, it's a lot more than just a transaction, right? It's like he's offering them a chance to completely transform their lives.
Exactly. It's about understanding the real value you're delivering and then structuring your offer in a way that really clearly communicates that value.
So, thinking about the problem you want to solve, how can you create a solution and an offer that really shows your customers the amazing payoff they'll get?
That's the key right there. It has to be about them and the transformation they desire.
Okay, so secret number 4 is preparation for persuasion of prospects. You've got your sellable solution now. How do you get people to see its value and believe that it's what they need?
Well, Golden says you need to start by really visualizing your potential clients achieving those positive outcomes. You have to see them succeeding as a direct result of what you're offering. If you can't see it clearly, then how are they going to believe in it?
Makes sense. And he points out a mistake that a lot of businesses make. They get too focused on all the bells and whistles, the features of their product or service, instead of focusing on what those features will actually do for the client. What are the benefits and the ultimate payoff?
Yeah, it's a really important distinction. Your potential clients, they don't really care about the nitty-gritty details of how your product works. What matters to them is the result. How is this going to make their life or their business better? He uses this analogy of a doctor and a patient. The patient just wants to get healthy. They don't care about what medical school the doctor went to.
So how do you communicate that desired outcome effectively? Golden talks about this technique called future pacing.
Yeah, future pacing is all about helping your prospect really imagine and feel the positive future they'll have if they say yes to your offer. You use really descriptive language to paint a picture of their success, and you try to bring in sensory details and emotions. You're not just telling them what could happen, you're helping them experience it in their mind.
And it's not just about showing them the good stuff. You also have to show them the cost of not taking action. What are they missing out on? What problems are they going to keep facing if they choose to do nothing? He tells this story about how he invested in a $30,000 coaching program, and he believes that investment helped him make $50 million.
Wow. Yeah, that's a pretty powerful illustration of what can happen when you're willing to invest in yourself. So think about how you can use future pacing and how you can really clearly articulate the cost of inaction when you're communicating with potential clients.
All right, let's move on to secret number 5, creating compelling content. In today's digital world, this one seems pretty essential for any business that wants to grow.
Totally. And Golden starts off with a really interesting perspective here. He connects the act of creating to this idea of being made in God's image, that we're creators too. He says that we basically create the reality we experience through the content we take in, and even more importantly, the content we put out there, especially our words. So if you're not happy with where you are in life, you need to change what you're putting out into the world.
That's deep. He then gets a little more practical and talks about creating a lot of content as a way to improve. He admits that your first attempts might not be amazing, but consistent creation is how you get better.
It's like anything else, right? Practice makes perfect. But he also cautions that you need to have something valuable to say in the first place. He says, You can't draw water from an empty well, so you have to constantly be learning and filling yourself up with knowledge.
Right, and then it's not enough to just have the knowledge you have to be able to communicate it effectively. Golden is a big believer in studying great communicators, and even taking courses or reading books on the subject. He even mentions the book Super Communicators as a good resource.
He really walks the walk, too. He's invested a lot in communication training himself. The point is to commit to always getting better and to keep communicating even if you don't feel perfect. Just get out there and do it.
Okay, so secret number 6 is attract an affluent audience. Now, this is one that can be a bit controversial, but let's hear what Golden has to say.
So Golden says, don't try to be everything to everyone. Don't try to save everyone. Instead, focus on attracting an affluent audience. His reasoning is that people with more money, they tend to buy things based on desire and not just pure need.
And he makes this interesting argument that by serving a wealthier clientele, you can actually gain more resources to help others who might not have as much money, maybe through free content or something like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective. He also points out that he doesn't chase after clients. They come to him because of his approach and the value he provides. And he briefly mentions the law of averages in sales, suggesting that it's more effective to reach a larger number of people than to try and convince every single person individually.
He also talks about how wealthy buyers are different. They often care more about saving time and avoiding hassle than just getting the lowest price. He tells this story about a waitress named Lucy who anticipated their need for clean silverware before they even had to ask.
Yeah, that's a perfect example of understanding the priorities of an affluent clientele. He also says don't over-explain your prices because it can make you seem less confident in your value.
And his last piece of advice here is to really learn about the motivations and the money mentality of wealthy people. He's observed that sometimes they're actually more attracted to higher-priced options because they see it as a sign of quality or exclusivity.
It's a different way of thinking about things. So he encourages listeners to really examine their own beliefs about wealthy people because those beliefs might be holding them back from effectively selling to that demographic. What assumptions are you making about wealthy clients, and how could changing those assumptions open up new opportunities for you?
All right, let's move on to secret number 7. Building of a Baroque brand. Now, Baroque isn't a word you hear every day in the business world.
Right. He uses the word Baroque to paint a picture of a luxurious brand, something that's high-end and well-crafted and commands a higher price. He defines a brand really simply as a name that reminds you of a story.
And the idea is to build a brand that people want to be associated with. They believe that being connected to your brand will somehow elevate their own status or value.
It's all about perceived value.
Yeah.
He asks this great question. How can I make my name so valuable that people want to attach their name to my name to make their name more valuable?
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's about building that prestige. He also differentiates between a default brand, which just kind of happens naturally, and a designer brand, which is strategically created.
Exactly. The key takeaway is to be intentional about the brand story you're telling. You have to decide what that story is, develop it, practice it, and live it.
And he brings in this religious idea of the word became flesh and applies it to branding. He's saying that your actions have to match your words in order for people to trust you and believe your brand story.
It's all about authenticity. Your brand isn't just what you say it is, it's what other people say about you based on their experiences. So you have to be really careful about how you're shaping that narrative through your words and your actions.
Okay, so last but not least, we have secret number 8. Meticulously manage and multiply your money. So it's not just about making money, it's about what you do with it.
Yeah, exactly. Golden says that managing and growing your money is often even harder than earning it in the first place. He emphasizes knowing where all your income is coming from so you can identify what's working well and what you can tweak to make even more money.
So track your income and expenses. Pretty basic advice, but crucial.
Totally. And he goes beyond just tracking. He stresses learning how to hold on to more of the money you make. He briefly talks about how he discovered using real estate to reduce his taxes, which had a huge positive impact on his business.
Wow, so that's it. Those are Myron Golden's 8 secrets to building an 8-figure business without being dependent on paid advertising.
It's a pretty comprehensive framework. It starts with understanding your audience's needs and ends with managing and growing your money wisely.
So to recap, those 8 secrets are perception of the pain of the people, aspiration to alleviate the ailment, strategize, over a solution, that sellable preparation for persuasion of prospects, creating compelling content, attract an affluent audience building of a Baroque brand, and meticulously manage and multiply your money. And all of this comes directly from the tutorial we've been looking at.
This deep dive has given you a really concentrated look at these principles, but the real work comes from actually applying them in your own business.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. After learning about these 8 secrets, what's one thing you can change in your mindset or your business approach today that will get you closer to your own definition of success? Which of these areas really stands out to you as something you want to explore further?
It's about taking these ideas and figuring out how they fit into your unique situation and then taking action.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.